The COVID-19 pandemic. You've probably heard of it by this point. It's a highly contagious, flu-like respiratory disease that spread globally and killed thousands. The one question that's on everyone's mind is, what's the endgame? The answer is through something called herd immunity. Herd immunity is a phenomenon that occurs when the majority of a population, usually 70 to 90%, becomes immune to a disease. When this happens, the minority who are not immune become protected. This is because immunity not only protects you from contracting the disease, it also prevents you from spreading it to others. There are two ways to create herd immunity. Either this majority contracts the disease and the survivors gain immunity, or the majority is vaccinated. This first option must be avoided for its deadly consequences. Hospitals would be overwhelmed and thousands more would die. The disease would never truly disappear and outbreaks would still occur. That's why social distancing is so critical right now, because it's the only thing keeping this from happening. This leaves one option, which is to find a vaccine. Unlike diseases, vaccines can stimulate immunity without the patient becoming ill or contagious. To understand why, we need to know how immunity works. When COVID-19 infects the cell, it releases a strand of RNA, or a genetic code similar to DNA, into the cell. Cell organelles are programmed to read and translate RNA into proteins, like a chef in a cookbook. The cell then produces more viruses that infect more cells until the host becomes ill. However, our body has a defense system called antibodies, which are protective proteins produced by white blood cells. Unlike most cells, white blood cells can recognize antigens, or distinct markers, on the virus. The cell then uses these antigens to create antibodies that fit to the virus and disable it, like a lock and key. This creates immunity because even when the disease is eradicated, our body remembers the virus and can rapidly produce more antibodies before we become reinfected. Vaccines are made by taking the virus and disabling it beforehand, so that when it's injected, we can create antibodies without becoming infected. This technology allows us to quickly create herd immunity and essentially eliminate the disease, so long as everyone who can is vaccinated. The only problem with vaccines is that they can take a long time to make. For starters, there are many different ways to disable a virus, and it's hard to know which method is needed. You can use part of the virus, weaken it, or kill it. Even then, there are still some unanswered questions. If you should only use part of it, which part? If it needs to be weakened, how weak? Even when the perfect vaccine is found, it can take up to a year of testing to confirm its effectiveness. Luckily, we currently have several promising candidates being tested and hundreds more in the making. This leaves just one problem left to solve, and it's the scariest of all, which is mutations. Mutations are random changes in a genetic code that can result in a changed structure. Viruses mutate regularly, which allows them to create new strains that can infect more hosts. This means that even when we develop a vaccine to end the COVID-19 pandemic, it's only a matter of time before the next pandemic comes. That's why we need to support scientists who are researching these viruses before outbreaks can occur. And when they do occur, we need to be prepared to take the proper precautions. Only then do we stand a fighting chance for our future.